Changes to the levy on plastic bags starting on Saturday. Australia's foreign minister on a visit to Beijing. And Ukraine's president have talks with Biden in Washington after meeting troops in the east of his country. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The government has announced the biggest change in relation to the levy on plastic bags since 2015. From Saturday, residents must pay a levy of $1 for each plastic bag. Apart from an increase in the levy, other changes will be implemented, such as scrapping some existing exemptions. Authorities say there will be a month's grace period for shoppers and retailers to adapt to the changes. Christy Khan reports.
The city's plastic bag charging scheme, which requires customers to pay 50 cents for the plastic bag, was imposed on the entire retail sector in 2015. However, shoppers will have to pay double the amount, with the price going up to $1 after the new legislation takes effect starting on Saturday. Furthermore, under the amended levy scheme, customers are required to pay for plastic bags used while purchasing frozen and chilled food, as well as wholly wrapped food items. For food items that are not fully wrapped, such as fruits and fresh meat not kept within non-airtight packaging, an exemption will be given. The authorities explain the exemption is granted for food hygiene reasons. Also, the waiver for unpackaged takeaway food, for example unwrapped bread, paper cup drinks, and lunch boxes will remain. But the number of plastic bags will be limited to 1 bag per order under the new law. The Environmental Protection Department says it won't pursue prosecution during the first month, saying retailers may need some time to train their frontline staff and adapt to the changes.
When we brief the trade and other stakeholders, we don't actually see very difficult any difficulties in adapting to these changes. We don't see any really major difficulties in implementing these changes. So during that's the first month grace period, what we'll focus, we will give advice or give verbal warning to anyone who's breaking the law, instead of really prosecuting the retailers.
But the authorities do not rule out the possibility of prosecuting repeat offenders during the grace period. Some residents say it is not difficult to adapt to the amendments. This woman explains that she is already used to a plastic bag-free world since the start of the plastic bag levy scheme several years ago. However, an environmental group in Hong Kong criticized the new measures, saying that the government should standardize the charging scheme regardless of the kind of food packaging. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Earlier today, Chief Executive John Lee left the city for Beijing for a 4-day visit, during which he will deliver his duty report to the central government. The CE is expected to meet with President Xi Jinping as well as Premier Li Keqiang. This marks Li's first duty visit since he became the city's leader. One of the top matters of concern to be discussed will be the return of quarantine-free travel between the mainland and Hong Kong. National People's Congress Standing Committee member Tam Yiu-chung, who also left for the capital, was optimistic that there could soon be quarantine-free travel between the mainland and Hong Kong. The number of new confirmed COVID cases in Hong Kong surged to almost 17,000 today. 50 more people died, the highest daily toll in 8 months. Among the 16,953 COVID new cases, almost 16,000 were local cases. Across 31 care homes for the elderly and the disabled, 46 residents and 7 staff members were infected. A total of 1,868 COVID cases were reported by 713 schools, and 39 schools had to suspend certain classes for 5 days. Among the local cases, 5 more XBB strain cases were found, as well as 1 from the BF.7 variant and 2 from the BQ.1.1 strain. 15 more patients died, the highest since mid-April, bringing total COVID fatalities in the 5th wave to 11,080. All community testing centers and stations will continue to open during the Christmas and New Year period, but the opening hours will be adjusted from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry said today China will provide more convenience for cross-border travelers when appropriate. This as the mainland reported 3,049 new COVID cases, along with a growing trend of coronavirus patients reporting fevers, an issue that continues to challenge the mainland's healthcare system. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The pandemic situation on the mainland remains challenging as the government has to deal with both the virus and with the arrival of winter, the flu season. An expert that advises the World Health Organization said he was skeptical of the world moving on from its epidemic emergency phase, given that China is only entering its second COVID wave. The United States also expressed its concern for China's pandemic situation, saying it could share vaccines.
The United States joins the rest of the world in hoping to see the PRC defeat this outbreak and to get COVID under control. The U.S. is the largest donor of COVID-19 vaccines around the world. We're prepared to continue to support people around the world, including in China.
Spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mao Ning, said Chinese authorities are consistently improving their pandemic control measures while ensuring economic and societal development in the nation. She added that China wishes to work with the international community to tackle challenges involving the ongoing pandemic. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong arrived in Beijing today for talks aimed at making progress on ending trade sanctions and seeking the release of 2 Australian citizens detained in China. Her arrival is at the invitation of China in celebration of 50 years of diplomatic relations between Australia and Beijing.
It's very good to be here in China after quite a long time between visits. Can I acknowledge and thank the government of the People's Republic of China for the invitation to be here so that we can spend the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between our countries. The mark of success is dialogue itself. We obviously have a lot of issues to work through, and dialogue is a prerequisite for working through them. I will continue to advocate for Australians detained, as I always do. Australia always raises the issue of human rights at all levels as appropriate.
In Beijing, Wong met her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi, who told her that China and Australia should and can become partners who are mutually in need of each other. This after Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said it was important to improve relations with the country's major trading partner. Bilateral relations soared in 2018 when Canberra banned Huawei technologies from its 5G broadband network, Beijing responding with tariffs on Australian commodities. Wong will also push for consular access to 2 Australian citizens, journalist Cheng Lei and spy novelist Yang Hengjun. Both are awaiting sentencing after closed-door national security trials on espionage charges. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was reportedly on his way to the United States on Wednesday for his first trip outside the country since Russia's invasion in February. Zelensky's visit is said to be at the invitation of U.S. President Joe Biden, and it comes just as the United States is about to announce a new weapons package of $1.8 billion. This includes, for the first time, advanced Patriot missile systems, which Russia has warned would mark an escalation in the war. Nazvi Karim reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Joe Biden have spoken multiple times over the phone and via video conferencing since Russia launched its invasion 10 months ago. They will finally meet in person after it emerged that Zelensky was to make a whirlwind visit to the United States on Wednesday. Zelensky will spend several hours in Washington, where he will hold talks with Biden at the White House, take part in a news conference, and address a joint session of both the chambers of Congress at Capitol Hill. It comes just as the U.S. is set to announce a new weapons package to Ukraine worth $1.8 billion. This includes a Patriot missile battery to help Ukraine defend its cities and critical infrastructure against intense Russian drone and missile attacks. And it is also in addition to $45 billion in emergency assistance funds that the Senate is set to advance.
This is significant for multiple reasons. The war is at another inflection point. It's at a fraught moment for Zelensky. The Ukrainians want to make sure that the American support for the war continues as control of Congress is about to change from Democrats to Republicans in the weeks ahead.
While Biden has given Zelensky billions of dollars in aid, the Ukrainian leader, for the moment, can only repay him with this Ukrainian flag, signed and handed to him by the soldiers he met at the besieged eastern city of Bakhmut. The strategic city in the Donetsk region continues to be the scene of fierce fighting that has lasted many weeks, with Russian forces trying, and so far failing, to expel Ukrainian troops. The guys handed over our beautiful Ukrainian flag with their signatures for us to pass on, Zelensky said. We are not in an easy situation. The enemy is increasing its army. We will pass it on from the boys to the Congress, to the President of the United States. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
A U.S. House of Representatives committee voted to release partially redacted tax filings of former President Donald Trump. The House Ways and Means Committee voted to release a summary of Trump's tax returns from 2015 to 2021. However, it is unclear whether the redacted material would illuminate any further conflict of interest between Trump's property holdings and his actions as president. Democrats have a small window to act as Republicans take control of the House in January. Trump never made his tax returns public, but presidential candidates are not required by law to do so. Still to come on tonight's news. The Taliban in Afghanistan bans female students from attending universities. Heavy snowfall in northwestern Japan. And Hong Kong Disneyland is expected to benefit from the relaxation of social distancing measures. Welcome back to TVB News. Afghanistan's Taliban rulers on Tuesday banned female students from attending universities effective immediately. This comes as part of the Taliban's latest crackdown on women's rights since returning to power last year. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The Taliban's decision was announced after a government meeting. A letter shared by the Taliban spokesman for the Ministry of Higher Education, Zaula Hashmi, told private and public universities to implement the ban as soon as possible and to inform the ministry once the ban is in place. The Taliban have already banned girls from middle school and high school, restricted women from most employment, and ordered them to wear head-to-toe clothing in public. Women are also banned from parks and gyms. The latest curb came despite the Taliban's promise to respect the rights of women and minorities when they returned to power in 2021, in the wake of the US military's withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Taliban had been ousted by a US-led coalition in 2001 for harboring then al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. The decision is certain to hurt efforts by the Taliban to win recognition from potential international donors, with the country mired in a worsening humanitarian crisis, and their hopes of representing Afghanistan at the United Nations. Afghanistan's UN seat is still held by the previous government led by former President Ashraf Ghani, despite the Taliban's request to represent the country, which was recently deferred again. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned the decision to ban women from attending university, calling it another broken promise from the Taliban and a very troubling move. The ban also sparked condemnation from the wider international community, including the US State Department.
The Taliban made promises to the people of Afghanistan and to the international community that schools would reopen. They claimed that this was a matter of procedures and arrangement and would be quickly reversed. Now, we hear the opposite. This unacceptable stance will have significant consequences for the Taliban and will further alienate the Taliban from the international community and deny them the legitimacy they desire.
Dan Orell, TVB News.
Ambulance workers in Britain are striking Wednesday in a dispute over pay. It comes a day after nurses walked out as winter strikes gripped the country, mired in an inflation crisis. Britain's Health and Social Care Secretary Steve Barclay said the National Health Service would prioritise those with life-threatening needs. Staff in the NHS have been awarded a raise of at least 4%. That includes most ambulance workers. But unions are seeking pay increases in line with inflation, currently running at 10.7%. The military has been put on standby to help drive ambulances. Elsewhere, heavy snow in northwestern Japan since the weekend has left at least 4 people dead, played havoc with transport and caused the loss of electricity in thousands of homes. The powerful weather system has seen snow piling up to more than 2 meters in parts of Niigata, Yamagata and Aomori prefectures. Hundreds of vehicles were stranded on highways Wednesday night, with the heavy snow also causing power outages. About 20,000 households were left without electricity in Kashiwazaki and other cities of Niigata Prefecture west of Fukushima. A 27-year-old woman in the area was found dead in a car on Tuesday. She reportedly died of carbon monoxide intoxication after staying in the car overnight to keep herself warm. A disaster relief dispatch of the self-defense forces were deployed in some cities of Niigata after the local government issued a request to resolve the traffic congestion. Back locally, a woman was today sentenced to 1 year in prison for helping her boyfriend get a flight ticket to leave Hong Kong after he wounded a policeman during a street protest 2 years ago.
On July 1, 2020, Wong Kwan-wah, an engineer, stabbed a police officer with a folding knife in Causeway Bay. His girlfriend, defendant Cheung Si-ching, helped him book a flight to London that same night. She also accompanied Wong to the airport and got him another flight bound for Taiwan from London. The 26-year-old defendant was found guilty of perverting the course of justice. In mitigation, the defense counsel told the court the defendant has a good background and her action did not involve the use of weapons. The court heard that the defendant only committed the crime that day and not over a long period of time, and she did not take part in the wounding process. The defense said she committed the crime because of her relationship with Wong. She was not helping someone she had never met in return for benefits, and she did not harbor malice towards anyone. The counsel also stressed Cheung did not play a critical role in the case because Wong could have bought the air tickets himself without her help. But District Judge Frank Hee-yu said the defendant obviously knew that her boyfriend had committed the crime and was trying to flee the city when she bought the tickets for him. The judge noted Cheung's boyfriend had wounded someone with intent, which is a serious offense. The judge added that if the police had not enforced the law that night, the defendant's boyfriend would have left the city and escaped from justice. In sentencing, the judge, considering the fact that the defendant's action was not premeditated and she had not played a key role in the incident, lowered the starting point from 18 months to 15. Taking into account her guilty plea and good background, the sentence was reduced to 12 months in prison. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, Wong Kwan-wah, is serving a 5-year jail sentence for wounding and rioting.
The Department of Justice has to pay over $850,000 in legal fees in relation to Next Media founder Jimmy Lai's national security trial. That's after 2 failed attempts to bar King's counsel Tim Owen from the UK to represent Lai in court. The media mogul's request to hire Owen to represent him was initially approved by the High Court. The Department of Justice, or DOJ, appealed against the decision, but the appeal was dismissed by the Court of Appeal last month. The DOJ then took the legal challenge to the city's top court, and the DOJ lost again. Handing down a written judgment, the Court of Appeal noted there were no reasons to prove that Tim Owen needs to hire 4 barristers to deal with 2 court cases. The court approved the payment of legal fees to 2 barristers and ruled that the DOJ has to pay over $850,000 in total. Capacity limits on cinemas, bars and theme parks are set to be eased tomorrow. Hong Kong Disneyland expects the park to benefit significantly from the policy relaxation, especially during the Christmas season. Jackie Lin spoke with the theme park's management director.
Currently, theme parks such as Disneyland and Ocean Park are subject to an 85% capacity cap. That limit will be scrapped on Thursday. Welcoming the move, Hong Kong Disneyland Resorts Managing Director Michael Moriarty said they are poised to enhance guest experience in the park.
it's going to be a better guest experience. More people can get into a theater or onto a roller coaster, and it will reduce some of the crowding.
Since last year, the park has been open just 5 days a week, except for peak seasons, closing on Tuesdays and Thursdays as part of their cost-saving initiative. For the Christmas season and the Lunar New Year, operations will be extended to 7 days a week. The managing director also admitted that vaccine pass requirements and other COVID curbs could present more challenges to the theme park than their overseas counterparts.
The challenges that any site has, Hong Kong or any other destination, is that if there are other destinations that are easier to get to, less friction, it makes it a challenge. And right, so I think that's why we're very hopeful and looking forward to a time where things are friction-free for our tourists to come back to Hong Kong.
Michael Moriarty said Hong Kong Disneyland has been in talks with Hong Kong Tourism Board and all the associating partners in the tourism industry in a collective bid to reconnect Hong Kong with the rest of the world. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.